home for over 17 years of horse racing action. The Sport of Kings, featuring Tommy Walski. On today's show, we'll meet a Santa Anita legend. We'll meet Woodbine rider Patrick Husbands. You'll get a look at the racing career of the Tin Man. We check out the career of racing legend Kelso. And now here he is, BC's ambassador to the world of horse racing, Mr. Tommy Walski.
Our first segment today we know is going to get your afternoon off to a great start. It's a story about an equine warrior. His name is the Tin Man, who during his long career came back from many, many racing setbacks, and as you will see, the Tin Man's story is one of heart and courage, and one that you will enjoy. Once again, get your afternoon off to a great start.
They come to the 8th pole and the Tin Man digs deep and finds more.
Unlike his namesake of the silver screen, the Tin Man demonstrated tremendous heart every time he set foot on a racetrack.
Deep he finds Sarafan chasing gamely on the outside, but the Tin Man will win it.
But the path to glory for the son of Affirmed required a guiding force, found in the magic touch of the wizard of Santa Anita's main track, trainer Richard Mandela. The story of the Tin Man begins on a farm in Kentucky.
Here was this little weanling, kind of a scrawny little guy, hadn't really developed out much, but he had a look of class.
For some reason, I saw something on TV. I think maybe they were talking about Ray Bolger, the dancer, and then it says from the time of the Tin Man, the Wizard of Oz, and all that. And I thought, the Tin Man. I thought, my golly, I'll bet that's not used. So I submitted some more names. At the bottom, I put the Tin Man. Not really thinking they'd use it, but they did.
However, after bowing both tendons, it appeared the prospect of racing the Tin Man was in doubt.
My first thought was, this is a 2-year-old that's unraced that bowed both tendons. His chances aren't very good at coming back.
He said, I think what we ought to do here is go ahead and do the split tendon operation. He said, we've been pretty successful with it. And he said, if we don't, you know, I mean, he's going to just bow terrible and that's it.
Mandela began to work his magic. After having both tendons surgically repaired, he also gelded the bay-colored horse.
If you castrate a colt, he tends to grow out of all of the bulkiness in his shoulders and his neck, and taking that extra 75 pounds or so off of the front end can make the difference, in my mind, of a horse making it back to the races or not.
Not only did the Tin Man make it to the races, he went on to score impressive wins on the turf, including the Grade 2 American Handicap, Grade 1 Hirsch Memorial,
The Tin Man will win it, and the Tin Man wins it.
and a romp in the San Luis Obispo.
The Tin Man and Mike Smith totally demolished the field in the San Luis Obispo.
But after a major injury to his ankle after the Clement Hirsch in 2004, it looked like the Tin Man's career was in jeopardy.
Tore a lot of soft tissue, even injured one of the sesamoidian ligaments, which are very dangerous to try and bring a horse back. And because of it, we even said to ourselves, if this comes back and shows us any sign, we're not going to fool with it.
Mandela turned out the Tin Man to what would become his Emerald City, River Edge Farm in Buellton, California.
Amazingly enough, as the Tin Man does, everything went away. The ankle went down, the sesamoidian ligament went down, and that's a very rare thing in the racing business. To heal that kind of a ligament just doesn't happen that often, just as healing 2 bowed tendons doesn't happen very often.
I think the one thing that Mandela does is that he takes a lot of time and gives them plenty of time, and when they go back, they're ready to start going to work.
Homeward bound now, the Tin Man in front.
And work he did, rattling off 7 of 8 wins. The lone loss, a second in the Grade 1 Dubai Duty Free.
We started racing him, and he won all those great races. He was better than he'd ever been in his life.
The Tin Man wins!
He always had very good talent. You mix that with an old professional, and you got a modern-day John Henry.
One of racing's greatest stages, where the great John Henry made such an indelible mark. The Tin Man sought to add his name to the historic register of winners.
Always had the greatest respect for their race because it was our first $1 million race. I can remember John Henry on TV and making the big fight that he did. I had run well in the Arlington Million a few times and really had the hunger to get it done.
And they're off in the 24th Arlington Million. The Tin Man runs the half mile unopposed in 50 and 1/5 seconds. The Tin Man, this long-time leader. The Tin Man, it's his million. The Tin Man has won it wire to wire.
He was as good as life gets. Just couldn't ask for any more.
The Arlington Million, wow, that just, everybody should have a shot to win the Arlington Million. Boy, I'll tell you, that's the best.
After placing in 3 graded stakes, the Tin Man underwent routine exploratory surgery.
We do arthroscopic surgeries every day around racing anymore, and kind of take it for granted. Started to come out of anesthesia and had a terrible reaction. To the point he broke his knee, a couple of bones in his knee, and they're very important bones. They took away his stability to stand and turn and get up and down. It was a terrible situation.
Not only was the Tin Man's racing career over, his life was in jeopardy, as one false move could have proven catastrophic.
We kept him tied to the door in the stall, so he couldn't get up or down or turn fast. Kept ice packs, kept pressure bandages on it. Nerve-wracking's a good description. We were all on pins and needles. Woke up several nights thinking about it. The Tin Man was vulnerable to the point that if he jumped and twisted that knee, I think it could have come apart. The first couple months were very important to get him through that and get the initial healing, because without it, the knee was not going to hold him up. But he, again, the great patient, the ability to heal that he always had, came through, and we got there.
After over 7 years together, it was time to say goodbye.
You ready to go, buddy? Huh? I remember the last day. Now, he's been in that corner stall for years. There have been a lot of vans pull up and back up and load horses and go out of this barn, and he never took great exception to it. But I remember that day when the van backed up. He kicked the wall and squealed and bounced around in the stall. See you, buddy. He knew something special was up. Now, how he knew, I don't know. Typical day for the Tin Man at River Edge Farm now is he's got a nice fancy stall up there, much fancier than our racetrack stalls here. He gets taken out and put into a sand pen to kind of let down and move around and get used to being a little freer than he has been here. It's a slow process of giving him a little bit of freedom at a time, let him get used to it, let him toughen things up, strengthen up those legs again.
He has provided for my family everything that you could hope for if you're a breeder and owner of thoroughbred horses that you would hope for.
I could see myself sitting around telling some old timers this great horse I used to have, and what a pleasure he was, what a good racehorse.
The Tin Man is just exuding class. He's going to come trotting home.
And what a connection we had between us. What do you want? What? Yeah.
For years, one of the top jockeys here in Canada has been Patrick Husbands. Husbands, as you're about to learn, when he first arrived here from Barbados, things didn't go exactly the way you would think. Here's Patrick's story.
For racing fans in the United States, the sport of thoroughbred racing has gone 30 years without a champion of its most hallowed achievement. Not since Steve Coffin's harrowing victories aboard Affirmed in 1978 has American racing seen a Triple Crown winner. But that doesn't mean the same can be said for all of North America.
and Canada salutes the Breeders' Stakes winner and the Triple Crown champion. Wando was better than wonderful this afternoon. He was magnificent.
Canadian Triple Crown winning jockey Patrick Husbands has been a prominent figure in Canadian racing for over a decade. But his love of the game began in his native Barbados, where he would compete every evening against his older brothers.
Everything was about a race. We had the cows, we had to bring it on the evening, we raced the cows, we had the sheep. Everything we do is race, 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 race.
Patrick's father, Walter, was also a jockey and shared his knowledge of the track with all of his children. But just as Patrick's career was beginning, Walter Husbands passed away.
It's pretty tough. I felt he'd be in there, you know. God was his idol, you know what I mean? And all the words he had say to me right now, they are speaking for themselves.
Patrick would continue to ride successfully in Barbados for the next 4 years, but soon found it was time to move on.
My brother begged me to come to Canada. I went to Toronto. I was in Toronto for a month at Woodbine. Couldn't get on a horse, couldn't get nobody attention, not even gallop a horse. So I went to the B track in Fort Erie. I was there for 3 months, and I turned to my brother, you know, I'm going back home.
Luckily, help would come from a man Patrick would soon come to know very closely, Woodbine-based trainer Mark Cassie.
His brother was working for me, and he said, my brother's riding a race today. Would you watch him ride? So I watched him, and the horse bolted at the top of the lane. Patrick never stopped riding, and he won the race by a nose on the outside fence, and then the horse jumped the outside fence after the race. And I was like, well, I don't know how smart he is, but he's fearless.
Mark become a dad to me, and I become Mark's son. You know what I mean? And any advice I want, I call Mark.
When Patrick first started for me, I was training for a farm called Mockingbird Farm. And the only horses we would get would be the leftovers that weren't sold. And I'd say 50% of them were either crazy or nuts. Patrick used to go and get on him in the gate, and you know, he can get along with a crazy horse. I like fun. I like to tease horses. I like to see horses bucking. You know, I come up that way, I come up breezing horses and bailing off with you out for saying that you are crazy. That's how I come up.
With his close partnership with Cassie and his affinity for horses no one else would ride, Husbands quickly made a name for himself in Canada, winning 4 consecutive titles as Canada's outstanding jockey from 1999 to 2002. In 2003, he would ride Canadian Horse of the Year Wando to victory in all 3 legs of the Canadian Triple Crown. But the final race, the 1.5 mile Breeders' Stakes on the Woodbine turf, would be a true test of both Patrick and Wando's mettle.
You know, Wando always on the lead, so there's no way we're going 1.5 miles and you could ride on the lead. So Mike was asking me, what are you going to do, Patrick? He said, I just want to play it by ear.
They're off in the Breeders' Stakes. Stritzy. Shoalwater is showing early speed.
When the guys at gates fly, I take a hold, and he didn't like it, and he started to run off from me. So I get him to I put him behind the leader, right on the leader heels. The rider was on the leader, was looking for me. He's looking left, looking right. I told the other rider, said, he's on your tail, he's on your tail, he's on your tail. And then all on the back, the guys had me trapped. It was all over me. Had no way to go. And I see the only way I could win from here now is make the dash. And I make the dash by the 3-up pole. And everybody on forward, everybody make the dash too. And I pause after about 4 strides. I pause and all the way ahead, and then I get to the outside. And then when they start to come, the crowd will start to roll.
Here comes Wando on the outside to take the lead. Shoalwater is back in second. They come to the final 16th, and Canada salutes the Breeders' Stakes winner and the Triple Crown champion.
In 2006, Patrick rode in his first Kentucky Derby aboard the Cassie train Seaside Retreat.
When I was coming up, you know, as I say, my dad taught me a lot of things. And my father always said, one of these days, you're going to be riding in the Kentucky Derby. We was coming through the tunnel, and when they started playing Old Kentucky, I had on my goggles, and tears just started running from my eyes. I'm like, Daddy was right.
The next year, Patrick and Mark would team up again,